Remember the genre, there is always a twist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Call Time, a theater pod, where every role in theater matters. This is the space that's part good hang, part networking mixer, but a whole lot of hype. So sign in on the sheet, cause it's call time. What is up, everybody? My name is Marisa Homie Mast, and I am your hostess with the mostest. And today we are doing another Marquee Moment, which is where we put the spotlight on a show, artist, experience, some mysterious fourth thing, because it deserves to be on your radar. So take your seats. Go ahead and take a sip out of that very overpriced intermission cup that could be filled with the beverage of your choice. It could also be filled with... I'm not even going to finish that sentence because that would have... Anyway, we are here today with the creators of the brand new musical that I am currently so obsessed with. Y'all will understand why when I say this. We are talking to the creators of Like Father.
My name is Caroline Pernick, and I am one of the writers of Like Father, to book, music, and lyrics.
Hi, I'm Jacob Ryan Smith. I'm the creator of and also co-writer of Like Father, book, music, lyrics, all those things. All the things that make a show.
All the things that make a show. What a duo. I am thrilled that you are here. And so the first question that I think is rightfully appropriate is, what is Like Father?
Like Father is a coming-of-age, contemporary new musical that tells the story of a teenage girl whose life is turned on its head when her father, her closest confidant, the person she loves most in the world, is arrested, and she is relocated to live with her estranged mother. She starts to get really into true crime, specifically a podcast called Bloody Good. And things really go south when Bloody Good releases an episode on her father, reveals all his crimes, and sends her into kind of this already beginning, but then much quickly deepening journey of who am I if I love my father? Who am I if I'm my father's daughter? What is it when the people we love are not exactly who we think they are? Can two things be true? What is true crime, and how does it sensationalize criminals or grief and tragedy, and who does it leave out? Who does it highlight? And so, like, basically classic coming of age, but through the most distorted, extreme scenario you could think of.
What did I tell y'all? What did I tell y'all? This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. So much depth, and I'm just so intrigued immediately. That is hooked. I don't even cut that. So how does one spark this concept for a show such as Like Father?
How does one spark this concept for a show?
Yeah, let me paint a picture. So I graduated college in 2020 into the pandemic. I got my BFA in theater performance at the University of Michigan. I've always been a writer at heart. I went to school for performance. I got my minor in composition, etc. I always knew, like, long term, I wanted my career to be in writing. And I'd been writing a show while I was in school for a while that was like having a couple buzzes around, but as a young person writing a very big, large cast musical at the time, I pretty quickly realized I wanted to try my hand at something a lot smaller and more difficult. And the mindset at that point was, if you can get your hands around something producible, I say with the craziest amount of quotations in the entire world, given where we landed with this show, but something more, easier to pull off with smaller resources, I would grow and learn more to be able to eventually tackle this large cast show. I was waiting around for about 6 months trying to find what that show would be. The pandemic hits. All is lost. It's as sad as I have ever been as a human being ever. Our graduation got canceled. The workforce is non-existent. I'm living with my mom. I'm dating the wrong person, and things are just feeling very low. And throughout a lot of this time, for some reason, the only solace in my life was through listening to true crime podcasts. It just became an absolute obsession. Murders, serial killings, all these crazy, crazy real life stories. And I'm so desensitized at this point. It's like white noise. And, a lot of classic favorites, Crime Junkie, Last Podcast to the Left, My Favorite Murder, like all of these kind of on cycle in rotation. And each one of them has different varying levels of how they treat the story versus how they treat themselves. But the unifying force is this like colloquialization to other people's traumas that most of the time are completely separate from oneself, you know? And we're in taking it, thinking that these are almost characters in a narrative. And I think I liked it because it peaked that massive feeling of the twistiest crime drama you've ever seen, but it adds that extra flair because it's real, and nothing else could really capture it because we were all so numb and sitting around trying to find something to amuse ourselves. The jump is I'm watching a documentary on Netflix about John Wayne Gacy, classically called The Clown Killer, really bad guy. And I'm watching it with my dad because I'm living at home at the time. My dad had just retired, so we were both hanging around unemployed watching crime documentaries.
As one did, yeah.
As one did in the pandemic, you know? They interviewed John's daughter, who at this point was in probably her 40s, I would say. But she was talking about the fact that she was a teenager when all this was going down. And I turned to my dad and asked the question that kind of changed the course of my next 10 years creatively, which was like, okay, what would I do if I suddenly found out that you were a serial killer? What would that be like? And right there, he and I started spitballing and talking about, well, like my dad's a lawyer. So he was immediately into like, well, here's how it would work. Like, from that sense, like kind of desensitized. I'm like, no, emotionally, like I would be so screwed up because I'm very close with my father, which I feel like I need to keep reaffirming because when you're writing a show like this, everybody assumes both writers have tough daddy issues. But no, I genuinely believe it's because I love my father so much that this thought experiment was able to go so deep of like what would actually be lost if something that much was shattered. All to say, I started storyboarding and thinking about this probably too much. A few months later, I moved to the city for the first time. I'm in my first apartment in the place. I am playing, are you ready for this? The dating game on Tinder, Hinge, apps, etc. And I swipe on this beautiful young person named Caroline Pernick. And we start chatting and sharing music with each other. And I think we very quickly realized this was not going the romantic way, but there was a lot of mutual respect in the music that was being consumed. And passed back and forth. And eventually I'm like, I want this to center on a young woman. I know that's what this story needs to be. I know I want it to feel folky and youthful and very much that like, core, like sad girl pop that's become very, very big in the last, I mean, it's been big forever, but has had sort of a heyday kind of since the pandemic. And Caroline was the person. And so I kind of asked her a little cold, and we began this quest to write this crazy show.
That is true.
I love that. I love that.
It's all true.
Your Honor, it's true.
It's true.
That's absolutely incredible. So I have to ask, out of sheer curiosity, your love of true crime podcasts, that is obviously a big point in the show as well. Was Like Father always meant to be a stage production, or had you actually ever considered it for an audio drama, kind of fitting in the same vein?
This specific show has always been a stage production. I will say, without giving too much away, that I've done a lot of fun storyboarding on like the bigger world of Like Father, especially in the way podcasts affect the main characters and knowing these podcasts have lives outside of just the main people who are in our drama. So like, spin-off side stories, etc., I think could live in that world. This story has always been meant for the stage. We are stage people in our core. Yeah.
Good. Awesome. I love that. Perfect. You mentioned before, as you're watching this documentary about John Wayne Gacy, you started asking these questions. And so throughout the show, there's a theme of finding your identity amongst, chaos of predetermined circumstances, assumptions, maybe genetics. Were there other questions as you both were creating this you were asking yourself while writing in order to tackle these thoughts and feelings?
I think our biggest through line, at least it's become kind of the clearest one as of late, as we've gotten into kind of late stage tracking back to the beginning of what story did we set out to tell, and let's make sure we're still telling it, is not only like predetermined circumstances and your identity next to your family, but in a really complex way, and it's hard to achieve, especially when you're setting it against the background of somebody who does bad things, who is seemingly a bad person, who like does enough bad things that it's like, oh, there's something really wrong. What is it like to be a good person who does bad things? Or what does it mean to be a good person who has hard emotions or ugly moments or hard feelings? And how do you like hold that inside of yourself without rejecting that, and therefore maybe then becoming somebody who actually does bad things? I think a huge through line is forgiveness, and like to a point where we've had drafts where we were like, too much of the show is just people apologizing, gotta rewrite that. But forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others, and also like knowing that it doesn't have to be completely clean. Like that, I think one of the things we've also really looked at recently, because we follow, you know, primarily Chris, our main character's story and her relationship with her mom and her friend Trevor, and in retrospect, her dad, and now her stepdad, Ben. But we're also looking at Chris's friendship with Trevor and how, as she like begins to struggle and lashes out, what happens there. We're looking at this relatively healthy marriage between Ben and Michelle, and yet the mistakes that get made there, and what it is to find that barometer in self of what is tolerable, what you have the capacity for, what you can make space for, and doesn't tip the scale of your identity so much that it's not healthy. And when is it that we need to be able to like set a boundary or move on? And I think that that boundary gets very tested with Lillian, our podcast host, as the show goes on. So I'd say it's very much about like, I mean, I feel like all stories really are about good and evil. And I think perhaps the challenge of our story is not about good versus evil, but like, how can it all exist in the same place? And what you do with it is the thing that matters. That's probably the biggest, I think my biggest through line.
Well, and Caroline, you said good people doing bad things. It's also bad people doing
bad people
good
doing
things.
good things. That's right.
Which is so complicated. And
Yeah.
we talked a lot, you know, we made this story about a young person because in that time, being 17 years old, you're not an adult yet. You aren't given governmental autonomy, but it's not like your brain changes that hugely over a year. Like you're beginning to form your own opinions about things. And with someone who has never been granted the permission to go on the internet, who is not plugged in like other teenagers, she's kind of this moldable young person who is beginning to really understand this frustrating truth that two things can be true at once. In this kind of age, I think we've all seen it's really easy to either vilify or like sanctify as quick as humanly possible for you've done a good thing, so you're good. You've done a bad thing, so you're bad. Because it's easy. It's like a really easy thing to hide behind that binary.
And it's
our
scary
shows...
not to hide behind that binary.
Oh, yeah, because what do you do? How do you grapple with something like that where there isn't the kind of justice? Justice is not clean. It can't be clean. No. And our show is really hoping that we can kind of gaze into the abyss that is the gray inside of people and understand there is no 100%, you know, reason
certainty
for why we do the things we do. It is just a layer of decisions that we have to grapple with and then build who we are from that. And that comes all the way from a young person who's trying to define her own existence that's constantly changing with new truths that people are throwing at her, all the way down to the way she wants to treat her father, whom we are very clear is about as bad a human being can be. And shockingly enough and frustratingly enough, gave her a strangely good childhood. God, what do we do with those facts? You know?
Yeah.
I think like it just makes me giggle whenever we talk about it, because the like fate or whatever sense of the universe had to happen to put Jake and I on Tinder together. Because like when Jake asked me to write this with him, he didn't know really anything about me at all. And I laughed when he said looking into the gray area, because, and I'm sure this will like, I mean, it's literally like a personality trait by this point, but I have severe OCD, and I was diagnosed when I was very little. And like, it's been my lifelong work up to this point, which like the whole thing, my whole life has been like, how do I grapple with the fact that things aren't black and white and that they can be gray? And a stranger simply because of the way my music sounded, came to me and was like, hey, can we write a story about that together? Like that, I feel like that also kind of summarizes the like luck and the outside of ourselves, universal, whatever magic that has happened with getting this show to the place it's at. Because it has all been so bizarrely aligned. And that's not to like shortchange the work that's been done and the self-production. But I think we are not ever taking for granted the position we've been put in. And I think a helpful thing in that is how it has all felt very like domino effect, which also makes it feel more important to tell the story that we've set out to tell. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's ours. Like it's, you know, we have perspectives that help us tell it and skills that help us tell it. But there have been so many moments where we're like, oh my God, what if this happened in the story? And it's like, well, yeah, that's always been meant to happen. We just didn't think of it till now. Like the show has really, really written itself.
It's written itself through draft and draft and draft. I mean,
yes.
Not to change the lens of that. It just really is like we've always known when we've done a big, heavy draft where we're like, what is the thing? What is the thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly someone says that one, well, what if this person did blank? And blow it all up, start over. That is the story. Oh God. And so it's all these like little linchpin effects that have redrafted and redrafted to sort of become this version of it that we're insanely going to get to put up on its feet.
Yeah. We'll talk about this more later. Like I'm very much like, yeah, I'm a spiritual woman. I'm a woman with the universe. I like to believe in the alignment, the domino effect, while also, you know, same coin, many truths can exist at the same time. The obvious work that has gone into this, I admire it so much, and just it's making me want to go back to school for psych.
Yeah.
Drama therapy certificate, here we come.
Yeah.
It starts today. Congratulations on your new path.
Thank you so much. Yet another one. So, of course, this is a musical. We have to talk about the music. And before I even go into my fangirl status of what I have heard so far, I would like to talk about, like, how would you describe the overall vibe of your score?
I'm going to give the heady answer, and then I promise we'll end this with like an easier tagline. There are three genres in like Father that are all colliding in an exceptional explosion of emotion throughout the thing, with one like trying to figure out what will raise to the top. There's like a classic folk pop musical theater singer-songwriter essence to our main character, who is very emotional and very like going on this emotional hero's journey of finding themselves and where they fit into the universe they've been inserted into. There is, on the other side of the coin, sensationalism. It's very digital. It's very jazzy. It's very like swingy and celebratory, and it is always paired with the most horrible lyrics in the show. So it is this beautiful celebration of the turmoil, violence, and chaos that exists in the world, and how one is able to take that and use it as a commercialized tool for their own self-preservation and gain. The final one is deep-seated Sondheim-y piano that lives in our father character, who exists kind of like a spirit in the show. He is almost never there in flesh and blood. And his space comes from almost overly complex, like overthinking, and the way an emotional like space can constantly be running awry and zooming to all these different spaces and tonalities. And at many points in our show, those three genres explode into one sort of sound. That's the sonic space we're playing with. To whittle it, it is a pop folk musical theater score. I think that's the cleanest way to call it. It's, Caroline, please feel free to say that.
I could not say anything else. Well, I think the fun part about the sound of the music, actually, and it comes very much from mine and Jake's collaboration, is we are two very, very different, kind of like all these genres colliding, like we're two very, very different musicians who somehow work very well together. But I think the mix of our styles makes it incredibly complex music and also incredibly accessible. And like that meshing of, I mean, Jake is like true, like, let me piano whiz, composer whiz, I can do whatever, I can make all the arrangements, whatever. I'm like, let me play the chords that I have taught myself to play on my guitar that aren't even real chords because I can't bother to learn what tabs are. So I've created my own, musical language and like
Mode.
write like fun, like dreamy lyrics, whatever. And like it's such a different musical approach because one is so driven by skill as like the core of it, the thing that you're like, oh, and one is so driven by like, oh, there's something very human and earnest happening here. And so that is also what the combination of our sounds sound like. And it's fun also to track, like, if you really know us, you can kind of figure out who led the charge on each song or which songs were truly like both of us in a room together doing it, which is so special. And now we have all of our hands on everything. I actually think, interestingly enough, our two singles are not misleading. Like, I think they're very true to what the show does, but I think they're misleading as to you probably think you could guess what the rest of the show would sound like. And you'd be completely wrong. Like, I think
Good.
the excitement and for the accessibility, like our leading singles are like, yeah, this is contemporary musical theater. How fun. And it's good contemporary musical theater. But the places where we like devolve and we move away from that path, I think are what make the score so special. And I'm very excited for people to hear more of that soon.
That is extraordinary. I'm like giddy with excitement because
Trust me, us too. I promise.
I'm sure I would hope so. Because here's the thing, I have loved the singles that are out. I have my notifications on all the socials pages. I'm like, okay, good, it's out. I can listen. And I love that it's quote unquote misleading. I love that I won't know what's coming next. I love when a score does that. That is, it scratches an itch in my brain. So I am really looking forward to when we finally are blessed and gifted the full cast album. The vocal talent that you have for at least the release singles so far, I am floored. Like I'm a huge fan of like all of these people.
Us too.
And so I was like, oh my God. Yeah. People like, James Merle Eigelhart, Ellery Ward, Keaton Whitaker, and Luke Islam, and you're like, oh my God.
I think we got so lucky with everyone because they're such incredible vocalists, but they're also great actors and actors through the studio. And that is a highly underrated skill, I think. And that's as somebody who I'm like working on building that skill myself, because as a singer, in a musical theater world, especially that I was going to say for better or for worse, but I fear it's kind of for worse, is like, if you can sing your set, like singing number one, let's hear somebody like belt and riff and whatever. And that all rocks when it's either that is the thing that we're watching and we're watching for the spectacle of a voice, or it highlights or uplifts the story that you're telling or the music. But when you're in a studio and it's so built in to be like, sound as good as you can, sound as pretty as you can, to try to, trust that, all these people are like exceptional singers, kind of couldn't sound bad if they tried, but to be comfortable being like, I'm going to sacrifice maybe having the most perfect vocal performance for storytelling or for character. I think like to have people who still sound like they have the most perfect vocals of all time and are telling story is kind of where I am like in so much awe, because it's so intentional. And it's like, yes, it's, it comes natural and easily to them, but it's also like being in the studio, like doing all these different takes of how can you emphasize this, or how can you let your breath go on this a little more to tell the story differently. So hearing those things back, which a lot of that, like, I think shines in Keaton, especially, like the way she places her words is so specific.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So exciting. And it sets the tone for the show that it wouldn't if she was just like singing it as well as she can sing it, which she still is, but having the purpose be the storytelling is, I think, what I hear in these tracks that keeps me being like, oh my God,
Well,
Whoa.
especially to be on the oh my God, Keaton train. Like Keaton is she's a rock star, you know.
Yes.
She
Right.
and she
Yes.
has musical theater roots dead into her. That is a musical theater girly if you've ever met one. But also, she's the lead singer of Daisy Grenade, which is a punk pop
Love.
band. Love Daisy Grenade,
Big
and she's
fan.
developed this whole musical styling for their studio albums, which is so different than what we asked her on the day. Like so much of like Father are specifically crafted to give specific sounds depending on the key that we use and where we place like specific phrases. So much of Benoit, for example, is like way lower than you think it should sit in who would be a 17-year-old girl's voice. Like you would expect that to ring in different spots that like kind of the musical theater canon sets are like pop heroines. It's always very tall and cricoid up and collie and thin and things like that. A lot of hers is set really low because it's like supposed to be at an emotional zero. So having Keaton come in and there were questions of like, oh, like, this is feeling low. I mean, I'm like, oh, then just don't sing it. Like you're allowed to just talk it. And it starts to like show the fry and the exasperation of where you are, and her eyes being like, oh yeah, duh. Hell yeah. And then the next take is like, oh, it's perfection. It's smart singers, smart actors being as smart as they can in the studio in a very quick turnaround. I mean, we didn't have a ton of time in studio, so we're going off of a lot of instincts, and their instincts are perfection.
Incredible. And it's funny. You almost read my mind a little bit. This about, smart actors, smart choices. This to me is a smart show in general. Like this is everything you've done to create this world and this story and the music is all so smart. I admire that a lot because it means that you've been really putting in the thought and
it's
the
a
work.
lot of talking. It's so much talking.
Yeah. Good. Please, more people. People should talk more. We need to bring back the year of the yap, okay, in terms of artistic creation. The year of the yap. One of the things that I thought was so smart about how you've been marketing this show is y'all went to CrimeCon. I thought that was so cool. There is an overlap between fans of theater and fans of true crime, and I don't think that people really understand that has existed. So you went to CrimeCon, you've done non-traditional marketing. What was the idea to take these opportunities to kind of let people know that they're actually part of that overlap in the Venn diagram, not necessarily on one side or the other?
Yeah, it's my diagnosis of the overlap is that people who often gravitate towards true crime are into good stories.
Right.
It's good stories that you can find out in the wild. We're catching them like Pokeballs and we're, showing them off on display. It's just a strange thing that a lot of these stories have to be centered around something horrible or violent because that's where a lot of like the big emotions, big grief, big twists, that's the way to cultivate those like classic major storytelling tropes that we capture in the wild. And in doing CrimeCon, there was so much cool opportunity in getting to exist in that room. But more than anything, what I think I found was the original like build of this show was a wholehearted critique of the true crime industry. I had just spent 2 years being obsessed and was sort of trying to undo my relationship with true crime and how desensitized I had become. And so this was an attempt to sort of remedy maybe something that I had felt guilty about in the way that I was intaking these stories for a long time. I was not intaking them responsibly at all. It was just through entertainment. It was just through, a horrible schadenfreude of knowing someone out there is having it worse than I am when I'm being sad. And I felt comfortable with that. The longer we've done the show, it's this crazy weird cycle that like strangely wraps back on itself. And being in those rooms and getting to know people who like have centered their lives or their careers or their passions or their art around the true crime industry and getting to have the conversations of like, I guess we're one of them too, in a strange sort of way. In being an indictment of it, we are also sort of leaning into everything that makes true crime so much fun and so interesting. We literally have a line in the show, and I won't say what happens for it, but like, remember the genre, there is always a twist. And we embrace that fully in what happens in our show. You begin to see a lot of joint group thought in the Venn diagram of wanting to be ethically responsible with these stories, but understanding that the human desire for knowing and experiencing good and often true storytelling is very, very deep in us. I mean, these are passed down stories through generations. Before there was any way to record them, people were talking about the crazy story that happened to my great grandmother when she went off to blah, blah, blah. And my grandfather went off to war and these people died and there's this explosion. Like, war is just passed down true crime. History books are passed down true crime. And so in this modern way of telling these stories and reflecting them, I think it all comes back to who you center and who you decide is, are the ones who should be embraced and loved and honored. And that we are not smart enough to be able to, point at someone and say, you are the villain and you are the hero. It's just never that simple. So these spaces have been really eye-opening, and it's been cool to bring a story like this straight to the source. And we got to know a lot of cool creators. We got to know people who love true crime deep in their bones. And I was scared sometimes of talking to them to be like, well, I mean, no, yes, this is a true crime show. And also, like, the show a little bit hates true crime. Like, both things are true. And they're like, no. My whole life is true crime. I kind of hate it too, but I can't get enough of it. So I'm trying, we have an ethical corner in our show, or we reach out to these nonprofits, or we raise money for survivors awareness. Like, we do all these things to try to balance the scales. And it's a strange thing to note that, there's no way to balance the scale with humanity. It is just, being cognizant of the kind of stories you're telling.
Were there any interactions that particularly surprised you?
Yeah, it was a lot of people who didn't understand. Like, we had a couple who would walk up and be like, okay, so these are true stories and you're musicalizing them. Don't you think that's weird? And I'm like, well, no, they're not true stories. Our show is very much fictional. And I know we're selling it off of this true crime moniker, which is an interesting dichotomy that we're trying to figure out the best way to handle. But on the other side, no, every single booth in this entire room is commercializing these stories. We're just kind of like shining it back. Like, how ludicrous to sing and dance about murder. Is that not what we are all doing? And in hearing that, and then, we were displaying Bloody Good, one of our singles, for a lot of the people there. You could feel them as people wearing badges that are like, half of them being like, my favorite murder is this, and Merlot,
true crime is
and
my therapy. Yeah.
True crime is my therapy. Like, all these badges, and they're sitting there, and I'm watching them listen to Bloody Good and like tap their foot, and they're like having fun, and suddenly there's a moment of being like, oh God, and I'm like, boom, you got it. You like, yes, exactly. Such an interesting comment interaction I had the other day on one of our things we put up on TikTok of someone being like, it's so insensitive to put this kind of stuff up. Like, this makes me super uncomfortable. I can't get down with this. And I'm like, that is quite literally the point. And pushing that and the uncomfortability you feel, now think about how much money this industry is making. This is actually what it does for people, So there's a lot of cool interactions of people having that eye-opening thing where they finally hook into what it is we're trying to do,
Absolutely. And I think these are the conversations we need to be having. And this is another wonderful reason why art exists, to create these conversations. Let's talk about it.
Oh,
let's see how and where this leads.
Let's get into it, baby. Like,
seriously.
Let's talk.
It's almost as if communication is key. Who the funk? I don't know. But
it's so hard. So many of us have lost the ability to communicate. It's a really tricky thing.
Tell me about it. Anyway, that's for another episode. But I would like to know, throughout all of this, what have you learned about yourself as an artist through this creative process of creating Like Father?
I mean, I've learned that I'm a writer. I think
yes, you are.
You are such a writer, Caroline Pernick. My lord.
It's really it's been such a very interesting process for me and for Jake too, but yet another situation where Jake and I are on very different sides of the coin. Like, I always kind of wrote that I've always been performer first, and always known that like my biggest dream is to be a performer for my whole life. And first of all, to meet somebody who's like, let's write a musical, my favorite way to tell that interaction is that I was like, I had just met this person, I didn't know how crazy he was, and so I assumed it was going to be like for fun, every once in a while, we would like maybe like write half a song together and be like, haha, wasn't that a fun time? And then 6 months later, we were in our first like equity workshop, and that was not my plan personally. And yet here we are 5 years later, and I'm like so happy it became my plan, but I had to learn to let it become my plan. I didn't know. I mean, it's so new to me. Like this whole, obviously musical theater isn't new, writing isn't new, but writing a musical is so new to me. And there's been a lot of like navigation in that for me of like how to own that and how to be somebody who's coming in with less technical experience and to be like, but I do have opinions and I am here to tell the story for a reason and my skills are valuable. And especially like, I think it's been a huge crash course for both of us in the business side of things, to be people who have worked primarily as actors throughout our lives and to all of a sudden, one, be on the other side of the table in, workshops, but also in casting and then in like business meetings with producers and figuring out money and different like work relationships. It has been a revelatory and sometimes really hard peek behind the curtain of like, oh right, this is like what we get to not know is happening and not deal with when you're the person who's showing up for rehearsal and then going home at night. And so I think I've learned how to fight for what matters to me. I've learned what matters to me, period, I think in this, and kind of to trust ourselves also as a unit. I think I've learned to collaborate, honestly. Like I'm an only child. I'm a consistent, like solo human being. In my life, I have my lovely relationships, but I think in terms of my creative world, other than working in an ensemble, like I've always played music alone. I always wrote alone. I've never had such a close collaboration, and it's been the greatest gift and like such an amazing thing to create a world with somebody and, let alone like become friends. That's the bonus. Or maybe creating a world is the bonus. But collaborating, throwing out ideas, being okay being wrong, being okay doing bad work, and then being like, okay, that's not gonna fit here. Yeah, I've learned literally so much about myself.
I've watched it happen. So it's been really exciting, honestly. Like the people we are today are very different from the kids who started writing the show in like a major way.
My God. Yeah.
In like a major way. I feel like mine has been practicing what I preach in a major sort of way. Like, everything we've said today about there being such a gray area to people being people, to the way minds interact with themselves. It all whittles down to the collaborative process too, right? And Caroline could be the first to vouch, like I am a go, 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 go kind of person. And in knowing that about myself and in having that fire in me that doesn't ever want to stop, I absolutely know a lot of it also is like a takeover, just do it, commit to it, walk over it. This is the way I chose it and we're starting and there's no time to just do it. Like, and so it becomes a little bit, I have to trust my instincts so much in those ways that sometimes I begin to only trust me. That's not helpful in collaboration, and it's not the kind of collaborator I want to be. And so this like gray area motif that we've spent 4 years constantly talking about the best way to embrace in our show, I've been trying really hard to embrace that as a collaborator, and understanding that like when people are working together to make a musical, there are so many opinions and so many minds, and it's really easy to feel like someone is your enemy at some point, which is crazy because we're all just trying to make the show the best thing it can be. And these are in small little, anecdotes all over the place. There's a million ways to feel like you are against someone in this process. And it's hard to rework your brain and remember we are all on the same side trying to make this awesome. It's all anybody wants, or we wouldn't be wasting our time on it. We'd go do something else. And so I think that radical empathy and understanding that even if I don't like it, knowing I might not be on the good side or someone else might not be on the good side, or the sum total truth is there's no flipping good side. We're making a musical. And at a certain point, you have to trust each other and hold hands and hope it works out. And I think so much of this has worked out, even when we have been scared it wouldn't, or we've been scared we made the wrong choice or someone else made the wrong choice or whatever. it works out because that radical hope for what this thing could be permeates every single creative on it, and trusting in that and trusting in your fellow man. I know it's like silly to pull it like that, but that's really what it is. I think has made me a better collaborator and a better person. I've been able to bring that into my personal relationships, my family, all over the place.
I'm a sentimental person. I mean this genuinely. I am so incredibly proud of both of you in just your journey as a pair, as individuals, creatively, personal, like just, I am so freaking proud. And I hope you are also proud of yourselves, genuinely. And with that, I would like to take a moment. This is one of my favorite parts of the show, which is where I would love each of you to stare down the camera, and we are going to manifest the future of Like Father.
I mean, obviously, we would love a long life for this. I think we absolutely see a New York run of this. We hope it is able to be in the houses that would be so cool to be a part of, mostly because it gets people to see it. The real reality is I think we are so happy that it is getting done, and we hope that that is not the last part of this journey. To have our work immortalized now with this EP, we hope it will eventually be a cast album. We hope we will eventually be able to see it in the sphere that we have always wanted to see it. But there really is already like a serendipitous pinch me winning that we've already had. And so I just hope to continue to take this feeling and not lose it. If I can get this same sort of like, I can't believe this is happening, to the next round, to the next round, to the next round, eventually that'll lead to everything we can ever hope for, you know, whether that be massive Broadway houses, etc., whether it be a movie adaptation, whether it be a cast album, whether it be a licensing darling, whether it be a great performance in another country, you know. I think that is my manifestation, that the journey of Like Father and everything that we've gotten to see and learn from it continues.
My manifestation is that we continue to successfully tell the story that we set out to tell. I think the one big thing I would ask, on top of all the things that Jake said, is that we stay true to the reason we started writing this piece in the first place, and that we successfully keep the integrity of our story, and we let it be challenging, and we let it be controversial, and we let it be truthful, and we don't shy away from complexity. And also it would be so cool to be able to make some kind of living as writers. So, and that's like so rare. And even if we were at the top of our game, would we be making a living as writers? Probably not. And that's okay. but we're manifesting right now. So that's how I manifest for us. But I think especially as young writers and people who want to make something new and different that does fit into the sphere of musical theater that is being made now, that we keep our specificity and what we set out to do.
Well, and so to add to the manifestation, first and foremost, I want that full EP. I'm ready for that full EP. I also want it in a physical media. I'm talking CD. I also would love to see a really cool looking vinyl.
I would love a vinyl.
Oh my God.
I think that would be really awesome.
I'd go crazy.
I would also go crazy, which is why we're manifesting it here. I also obviously manifest a very successful run at Alliance Theatre. I want that to be not just sold out. I want people to be angry that they couldn't get tickets for this time around. I want people to be like,
that is our hope.
Yeah.
That is so very much our hope.
Yeah.
I manifest that Like Father becomes a reference point on other true crime podcasts. I want it to become a reference point. I want it to be an Easter egg listen, I know that they're filming the season right now, but I would love to actually have this be an Easter egg in Only Murders in the Building.
Oh my God.
I think that would be so cool.
Also, might I say our nemesis, because I'm sorry, I have to say this because we wrote Bloody Good 4 years ago, ages ago, which quotes Serial. And then on the first episode of Only Murders, when their theme song also quotes Serial, I'm like,
we were like,
you beat us by 4.5 years.
However, manifesting a Steve Martin star turn as John Grady.
Oh my, Chris. He could be Chris.
He could be Chris too.
Steve.
It is up.
We know you listen.
Oh, Steve, if you're listening, hi. Oh my God, I can't believe you're listening. Thank you so much for being here. I just manifest ultimate success for both of you through Like Father and also outside of Like Father. And because I am a spiritual woman, I say, it is written, and I will do my sealing spell on this after we wrap. You know?
Oh my God, we came on, Caroline. This is big.
Yeah, it's huge.
You need
thank
a
you,
witch
genuinely.
friend in your corner.
Oh, that's right.
We do. I am at a deficit of witch friends, and
Yeah,
so
me
this
too.
is really exciting for me.
Heck yeah.
Seriously, thank you. That is so sweet. All of this has been very sweet, and it's really nice to have you in our corner. This has been so much fun chatting about it. Truly.
Oh my God, literally my honor and pleasure. And so the last question I have for you, obviously, is where can people find y'all and follow Like Father and know what's coming up for y'all?
We have 2 singles currently out from our upcoming EP, which we've talked about a bunch. The 2 singles are Been a While, which is the opening of the show, and Bloody Good. And the whole shebang is dropping on August 3rd. And that'll be sort of our last big bang before we go into production and we start rehearsals on September 1st for our world premiere at the Alliance Theatre in Atlanta, Georgia. It'll be happening in the Hurt stage. Previews start October 8th. The show opens October 16th, and we are running to the end of November.
At Like Father Musical, at Caroline Pernick, at Jake Smith Sings.
Oh, you do love me. Yay. That is me.
Yeah, it is you. And we have a website.
Yeah, likefathermusical.com.
All of that information is going to be on screen and in the description box below. Caroline, Jake, this has been an absolute blast. I am so glad that we were able to chat today about Like Father. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
Totally.
having
Thank
us.
you for having
So
us.
fun.
Yes, and I'm so excited for all of you to be just as obsessed with Like Father as I am. And I want to thank all of you out there in living land for tuning in and signing in on the call sheet for this wonderful episode of Call Time, a Theater Pod, Marquee Moment for Like Father. My name is Marisa Helene Mast. You are the audience. Bye-bye now.
The killer that cut up a cabin of campers and put all the pieces and punches up on.
Trucker that tied up the tiny twin toddler so all they could manage to mumble was mom.
The barber from Baltimore bludgeoned the baker and dressed him in diapers demanding you done. And my favorite one?
Who's your favorite?
The one of the father who fled from his family to fuck 40 freshmen and frame them like art. He followed and flirted and flashed them his cock as he cornered and killed them and cut out their heart. And crammed them in cupboards and went in the walls where he kept his collection of dead human dolls. And for 7 years, no 11 years, they were lining the halls.
Been a while, since I lived on my own. Been a while since this house felt like a home. Hold to your sanity, keep your humanity, lie and say we're family. Somehow surviving, you will be fine if you just deny it. If you act just like nothing ever,
Let's move on just like nothing ever
I'll
happened.
pretend just like nothing